want to welcome you this evening to our Bible study. We continue to discuss the matter of the choices that our youth, our young people have to make each day. We have in the past looked at the choice that Joseph had to make while he was in Egypt, when he was approached by Mrs. Potiphar, and he chose not to. He defended his choice by saying it would bring, indeed, an unpleasant experience, not just for him, but it would cause his God to be displeased with him. Last week, we looked at the experience of the 3 Hebrew boys in Babylon, where they defied the king. The all-powerful King Nebuchadnezzar made a decree that a statue would have been established and they would need to bow down. We looked last week at the fact that these youngsters were in a quote-unquote foreign land. They had different cultural challenges to face, and yet because of what they brought with them to Babylon, a knowledge of God, a consciousness of his demands upon their lives, they were able to defy the king. This week, in keeping with our partners, the National Council on Drug Abuse, we are going to be talking a little bit about that issue of the choices that our young people have to make in respect to the use, sometimes misuse, and even abuse of substances. So to have this discussion with me today, I want to introduce members of that team. To my right, I have with me Mrs. Susan Brown, and she is a substance abuse officer regarding prevention and treatment of youngsters who may get engaged. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I welcome you to this discussion.
Thanks for having me.
Good. To my left is Mr. Clifton Morris, and he is the Regional Prevention Manager. So this evening we want to have the conversation as we look at the challenges that face our young people, some of the choices that they have to make, and I trust this evening that this will be beneficial to the youngsters, those of you who are looking on, and to the parents and guardians who also have to make decisions how to guide them as they make these generally difficult decisions. So let me start with Susan.
Okay.
Susan, we recognize that in the society in which we live, this whole matter of drug use, misuse, and sometimes abuse happens in the life of our young people. For many of them, it is almost like a rite of passage. When they reach a certain age, in order to demonstrate that they're a man, yes, they use substances that they perhaps see other men use. They use alcohol, they use marijuana and other substances. Can you help us to understand that as a powerful pull to the youngsters and how we might be able to prevent that?
All right, so one of the things, or one of the issues that we're having is that a number of our young people do get involved in substance misuse. And there are various reasons that young people would give for being involved in substance misuse. And for a lot of them, we will hear the talk about, stresses that they may be facing. It may be academic, it may be issues at home. And for a lot of them, the use of substance is an escape from dealing with the actual issues themselves. There's also one of the sad reality is that the substance is available and is accessible to our young people. And they often, and young people by nature is often curious.
Yes.
It's available, they see people around them using. For a lot of young people, they may have parents who are using the substance. And from growing up, they may see fathers, uncles, cousins, you name it.
Yes.
Persons within the household using the substance, and maybe unknowingly encouraging the behavior because they themselves would say things like, I feel stressed out, I'm going to drink something.
Yes.
Or, some stress, I go just smoke and deal with my stress.
Yes.
So unknowingly, I'm not saying that they intentionally encourage the behavior, but our children learn through copying what they see around them and hearing from parental, figures and caregivers that listen. This is a coping mechanism that you can use. You don't deal with your issues, you block it out.
Yes.
Those are some of the reasons, friends, influencer friends, wanting to fit in,
yes.
wanting to be like,
yes.
And for some young people, they may have issues in terms of self-esteem,
yes.
and just wanting to be able to fit in. Because, I don't want to be the odd one out. I don't want to look as if, I am, weird or something. So
yeah.
therefore, because everybody else is doing it, it is the expectation that I am going to be doing it too. Because how would I look to my friends
yes.
if everybody else is doing it, and so on. And then the whole issue of feeling good,
mm-hmm.
I'm under pressure, so I just go out and I just blow out. I just
yes.
go out and I just enjoy myself, and I just drink and smoke and, whatever is there. It's just for enjoyment and just having a good time.
Yes.
But not really thinking about the long-term implications that is associated with
that.
behavior.
We'll come to that in a little bit. So, Clifton, talk to me a little bit about this cultural factor that is there, that tends to pull the youngsters towards this. This cultural acceptance, it seems sometimes. Talk to us about that and how your organization is seeking to combat that.
So the cultural factors are real.
Yes.
And in terms of what we grow up, what we see, what the family practices, what the community supports, what seems to be okay and what is accepted.
Yeah.
So we know that drinking is the norm,
yes.
and it is okay, no biggie.
Yes.
And as I would mention, drinking alcohol seemed to be a matter from birth to death.
Mm-hmm.
So at the stage of someone having birth, the welcoming home, there's a welcoming home party and the alcohol is there, the first birthday party,
yes.
the alcohol is there. So it is not necessarily the child who is drinking, but the celebration
mm-hmm.
surrounds the use of alcohol, and it goes down to the end stage of death.
Yes.
So alcohol is used again. So the cultural acceptance, yes, alcohol is a legal product, yeah. and it is legal in the sense for the use for adults. So if you're 18 and under, mm-hmm. the law does not support the use of alcohol
yes.
among children. But even though the law stands and states that the policing system or the monitoring system mm-hmm. Needs to be more vigilant. So mm-hmm. the whole issue of what the community or what the village is saying, as the statement says, it takes mm-hmm. a village to raise a child.
Yes.
So no longer are we moving towards village, taking on the responsibility of other people's children, your children and other children, mm-hmm. to see that they are not smoking, mm-hmm. They are not doing things that are inappropriate, and we are just, so persons just become lax and not saying anything. So mm-hmm. the whole new norm or the cultural thing has taken over. Mm-hmm. And in terms of, if it is that we have thrown up to our old cultural practices in terms of what do we instill in our children?
Yes.
So we have the alcohol outlandish in the home. Mm-hmm. Here we drink, and as Susan said, the adults are the children example. So children look on to adults mm-hmm. and see what they do. Mm-hmm. Yes, when I was growing up, probably I would say, boy, when I watch movies and I say, I want to become a smoker,
yes.
because it looks cool.
It's cool, right?
So
right.
even though you may not necessarily practice in your home,
yes.
but it's the things that you're exposed to.
Yes.
No more than not, as I said, norms are changing. Social
yes.
media is the thing that has taken over the mindset of our young people.
Yes.
Adults or parents have little not monitoring as to what is happening. So even though everybody have their own gadget, and if a parent should say, I'm going to be in their space,
yes.
as soon as you're going to be too much in their space,
yes.
they change the game on you.
Yes.
But it is how do we get ahead of the game.
Yes.
So cultural issues tend to become a challenge now. Mm-hmm. How do we hold on to our old tradition? How do we make adjustment to adjusting to the new norms or what is the new culture for these young people?
Yes.
But we need to ensure that standards remain, and in terms of if it is that we're saying children under the age of 18 should not be consuming alcohol, drinking or smoking, in one of those old practices, that we need to ensure that those rules are maintained within So church supporting, family group supporting,
Yes.
adults, individuals supporting, and to ensure that we have children who will show respect and they will listen
Yes.
when someone speaks.
Okay. So we are aware that sometimes this support, these boundaries are not being enforced in homes. Our children, for the most part, despite the COVID, do interact on social media. They do meet in the context of school. Help us to help the youngsters, those who have not had that experience where they grow up in homes and see family members using these substances. Help us to help them to understand how they can resist this temptation, this curiosity, this youthful enthusiasm that is generally associated. Sometimes at school, one bring the alcohol, one bring the cup, one bring the substances. Help us to help our youngsters how we can resist that.
I think one of the things that is very important, and as I interact with a lot of our young people, one of the things that I would have noted is that in our interactions, in our discussions, once we find young people just pause for a moment
Yes.
and think through what they're doing, they normally make the right decisions.
Okay.
But what we find a lot of times is that our young people tend to be very impulsive. It's just undo.
Yes.
And so I think what is critical is the ability to sometimes just slow things down a bit
Yes.
and just think a little bit about what you're doing.
Yes.
And one of the things that we promote at the agency is building certain skills.
Yes.
Building or decision-making skills.
Yes.
If I'm going to do something, just pause for a moment and think about it. What is this present situation that I'm in right now, and what are my options? Okay, so do I do it? Do I not do it? Do I think about it and, talk it through? What is the benefits of getting involved? Yes, I'm going to have fun, but what if? What if?
Yes.
What if I do it and I am one of those that, have family members with mental illness and I'm risking my health,
Yes.
my mental health? What if I do it and it has significant impact on my brain functioning and so on? And I think what is critical is for us to, enable our children to be able to think things through. Just pause for even a moment and weigh the pros and cons. And I find that if our children have the ability to do that, then we'll find them making good decisions. But they tend to be, risk takers and,
Yes.
and so on. But the thing about it, what are some things, and I often hear young people talk about getting high and high off life.
Yes.
And what are some things that you can get involved in? Yes, it's good, you enjoy it, but it's not as risky.
Yes.
And these are some of the things that we probably need to be exploring with our young people. We're not saying as young people, be boring.
Yes.
We're not saying as young people, don't have fun.
Yeah.
We're not saying as young people, don't enjoy yourself. We're
Yeah.
saying as young people, enjoy yourself, but look at the implications of certain decisions.
Yes.
In life, we have choices.
Yes.
We have a certain period of life in which we are living. How can I live a meaningful life, but at the same time,
Yes.
I'm enjoying myself?
Yes.
And I think once we can equip our children with the ability to make sound decisions, think things through, and also have an appreciation and value themselves.
Yes.
Know their worth, identify your strengths. All of our young people, and as I interact with our young people, you'll find that they have certain strengths and abilities, and once they're able to tap into those, and to be able to pull from those and see that, listen, I have value, I have worth, my life has meaning and purpose, and they're able to tap into that sort of thing and affirm themselves, then they'll be able to, make decisions that will not impact them in such a negative way.
All right.
And as Susan would have been hitting on the point about the pause, the thinking.
Yes.
And for me, it's a matter of how do we get our youngsters to rethink certain decisions, certain action.
Yes.
So it's not about wanting them to regret, but if it is that they take those pause moments early enough to rethink and to think through carefully some of the moves that they're going to make. Because sometimes they fail to really look beyond their toes, and then they end up falling into those pits. So even though persons will say, sharing from adult experience, we would encourage you not to. If they're more than often, they will put a blind eye to that, or blind ear to that, and pretty much think that, oh, I'm my own person, I can make my own decision, I can think, I'm smart, and nothing is wrong with that, being smart and being able to think on their own. But also when they are able to use other person's experience to make good judgment, that's what we promote. And I think as part of the theme that the youth ministry is actually using for Youth Month is that they encourage their youth to rethink. And it speaks a lot, I think, about entrepreneurship, having the knowledge base and the networking that speaks about rethinking. And we want all young people, because we want them to correct some of the things, because we have young people who have missed their ways, some of them fall into mishap where drug use is concerned, mental health issues popped up in it, and the parents are crying out. And it is how can we also help the parents to guide their children in making those decisions, and us as parents need to be real to our children, because the children are seeking, they want to know about our growing up life. And if we're not honest with them, if we're not truthful to them, they're going to wonder. So how daddy not open up to me? How mommy not telling me this? So they are curious beings. And if it is that the more we tell them, we want to protect them just the same. But if we be careful enough to really share things that will help them, and to say, well, mommy did experiences too. How can I prevent myself from going that route? So we have to really help our youngsters. And as our theme for drug awareness week speaks to the fact about taking your time. So we don't want them to rush the life. COVID caused us to slow down a lot of things.
A lot of things.
So it is really take your time. It will be fine. Growing up will be fine. Learning will be fine. All the things that you're worrying about will be fine. And at the end of the day is that we want to ensure that all people grow up healthy and they end up to being productive people, and not drug being a part of that supporting system.
Part of the challenge that we have very often, and you hear some parents say, but me don't know what to tell you, me don't know what to say. How do we help parents? What language do they use? What opportunities do they take to be able to communicate? Sometimes from church, sometimes all they hear is coming from the pulpit, and sometimes it goes right over their heads. They can't relate to it. Help us. What kind of language? How should parents approach this teaching to help to give the children the capacity to say no, to resist?
I think what is important, most importantly, is for us as parents to, one, learn to listen. I think for a lot of times, even including myself, and I'm learning now more than ever, the importance of listening. There are times when and I guess genuinely so, we tend to want to just quickly fix. We see this happening and we fix it, and we see this happening and we tell her, you need to do this, we just fix it. But there are times when I think genuinely we as parents, we pause a little bit and try to zero in, understand, listen not to agree, but listen to the extent that I'm trying to understand. How is my child thinking? How is my child, what is the reasoning behind this kind of behavior? So in listening to understand, and then just take a genuine approach in terms of being able to say, yes, while I hear you and I think I'm understanding where you're coming from, but then going back to what Mr. Morris said in terms of just being able to be genuine and real, and to be able to have that kind of conversation, to say, listen, I have experienced this and this is the kind of implication. And I think our young people can and they react in a positive way when we are more genuine versus when we behave like we have been all perfect growing up. So I think it starts with the ability to be able to, one, learn to listen more than we talk, and to kind of tune in. And the only way, to be honest, as parents, we can do that is if we ourselves are self-caring, as the theme would have said.
Yes.
Because we cannot pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
We can only zero in on our children's emotional needs if we are taking care of our own emotional needs.
Yes.
And if those are not taken care of, we sometimes are cognitive, we're not as focused as we should, we're not as in tune as we should be, and so on. And we only can do that if we practice certain skills in terms of, you know, have good support system.
Yes.
You know, church.
Yes.
Be a part of the church where I can come in and we can sit and we can talk, and it helped me to take certain things off my chest, because if I have a lot of things bottled up,
yes,
you know, it's going to be hard for me to really deal with a lot of issues. So the ability to be able to take care of ourselves, and then to be able to tune in and genuinely understand teenage issues, and to be able to understand their world through listening, you know, is I think one way to.
Yes, yes. You know, Clifton, talk to the fact that it takes a community to raise a child. So you made mention of parties and the fact that alcohol will be there because you're making provisions for adults. But the children are observing it. The children are observing it. In the passage that we relate, as it relates to Daniel 3, as it relates to these boys, they were away from their community. They were away from their homes. They were away from their church. They were away from that supportive community environment. But yet they were able still to find the strength of character to say no. Talk about how important, some of the important things that communities should be doing. Yeah? We hear from time to time that adults have wine cabinet in the house, and sometimes they leave it open, and the teenagers come from school with their friends. Let's help us to guide our parents.
So what is important there is really building strengths of characters, or building characters.
Yes.
And if it is that we are able to know what are the spheres of influence that are out there,
yes,
who our children are relating to,
yes,
who they respond to, who they listen to, who they look up to,
yes,
and in terms of whether it's a music influence or it's a TED Talk influence,
yes,
what is it that keeps them going, or how it what appeals to them? So we know that this is the era of party and music and
yes,
alcohol and drug use and sex, whatever it is.
yes,
And it is young people who are growing up, young people who have desires, urges, just name it.
yes.
And you'll also have friends who will influence to say, do this, try this. But if it is that there is strength of character, our youngsters know their purpose, and they would be better able to make good decisions, and not necessarily fall into the whims of just, I don't know, but never just follow any wind that blows and that they go. So the point is though that if it is that we have young people who we really train, build their capacities, and we have programs that we work with our young people in terms of doing capacity building training, skill building, teach them resistance skills, coping skills, how to really influence people on the positive side of life. And so they themselves, while we are concerned about them making decisions, and if it is that we put the power in their hands to be power changers or to be influencers themselves, then we are somewhat changing a generation or changing a society. And if our young people get more involved in leadership early, even if it is that they see themselves as introverts, and we seek to build the confidence, and we tell them that we believe in them, even if they didn't see it, and we start to build those skill sets, then we have more people who are more likely to influence their own peers, even adults, because adults do listen to some kids who are really fluent in their speech and know content, and in terms of, and if we encourage them to be positive and what they listen to, what they are saying, and we speak about the value of community. Community speaks to church. Community speaks to the whole social life. What do they do? Your act of volunteerism, your act of leadership. These little things, these little aspects of life skill building is what makes the individual. Not to say that a good person who is well trained will not deviate. But there is also room that when there's deviation, it's easy for them to come back to what is good. I would have known about the story of the prodigal son. He didn't get good training, but he did want to go explore life
for himself.
But then he came back to roots. And that is what. So if it is that our youngsters are grounded, then even if there is fall off, they will come back, and it will be hard for them to come back. And there is research that we have even shown, even with drug use, if we have our youngsters who start using too early, it becomes more harder for them to break these habits, as opposed to an adult or an older person who start using a substance. They are easy to come off it. So brain development is also crucial at this point, and if it is that these pathways are damaged early, it is really creating issues for rebuilding. I'm going to ask Susan to just continue the conversation in terms of how, the brain development of our young people, which is crucial, and in terms of how we need to help them to really protect that.
Well, one of the things, as I would, in terms of the overall brain development and so on, and one of the things in terms of early growth and development is just active involvement in sports and getting them involved in recreational activity and so on. Those are the type of things that you were mentioning when we're looking at early brain development. But I think that one of the things that is crucial too is parental early involvement in terms of, as you mentioned, the three Hebrew boys and their values and something that they never and actually came back. I guess it's from early involvement where they talk about, they sit down as a family and they would have discussion, and I think the Bible speaks to the fact that you teach it when they rise up, when they go to sleep, you're constantly teaching, we're constantly praying for our children and so on. And I think those are some of the critical areas in terms of from early we teach, from early we start to, we spend time with our children, we go outside, we talk about nature, we sit with them, we do things together. I think all of those things are critical in terms of early development, that even if they do stray, those values that were embedded from very, very young would tend to, guide certain behaviors. And there are times too when I've listened to children talking, and there are times when I hear a child would say, they will stray a little bit, but they will say, boy, I can't do that. I really can't do that. Because, all those early teachings would keep, coming back at them in terms of what they were taught from very early. And one of the things we know is that the drug use, it does interact with their prefrontal cortex. One of the things we know is that the emotional area of the brain is what develops first. And they tend to get very, very emotional. But what we can do in terms of helping to build the cognitive is to be able to, have family discussion, talk about risk factors, develop pros and cons, build their self-control. All of these early involvement, church involvement, active involvement in terms of youth leadership, all the things that Mr. Morris said would what help them to build their cognitive, even though the part of their brain is that area that is emotional, that is the part, because I was reading something that spoke about the fact that as children, they have, it's like their brain is like, what they said, like you have the gas pedal. They have a real good functioning gas, but
Yes.
no brake.
No
And
brake.
if we want them to able to have that brake system
Yes.
in place, which is developing their prefrontal cortex, we would need to from early,
Yes.
you know, have discussions. And I guess we're going back to the roots in
Yes.
terms of, you know, family dinners, the things that we spoke about, those foundation,
Yes.
fundamental principles, being able to sit down with our children, family worship, reading the Bible stories together and
Yeah.
having discussions about them. What are your thoughts? And allowing our children to be able to reason things through for themselves.
Yes.
You know, talk about what you think happened and how do you think this happened and why do you think this happened. You know, from early, those foundation is set, and even if they do stray, they
Yes.
tend to come back.
Right.
Once as parents we implement those early foundation issues.
Yes.
I think those are some
Critical parts of it, yes. So we lay the foundation and talk a little bit about how important parents are, and where parents are not adults. And we want to say to every adult that is engaging with us in this conversation this evening that, look, you have a role to play. You have a role to model for the children what is a quote-unquote healthy lifestyle. You have a responsibility to mentor these children, to guide them, sharing your own experience, age appropriately, you know, as we go through, right? I want you to talk to me a little bit about the theme that you have adopted for this year. Take your time. It will be fine. Stay healthy and job free. What you have in mind here with this theme that you are putting for this week?
So there's a lot of anxiety
Yes.
that surrounds us. And how are we best able to, you know, put some alternative out there to persons
Yes.
in terms of, to say, slow it down,
Yes.
take your time.
Yes.
Things will work out itself.
Yes.
And so even though we are losing our jobs, our pay is being reduced because we can't travel much or we can't do these different things,
Yes.
and the income is being affected, cost of living is going up.
Yes.
But guess what? At the end of the day, it is going to work itself out.
Yes.
And what we would want is that we are able to put some things in place, that we're encouraging you to do the exercise, we're encouraging you to have your rest,
Yes.
have good conversation, have good relationships. And in terms of, with all of that, it builds the better you.
Mhm.
And the better you is the healthy individual that we are pushing for.
Yes.
And it is not that we are going to choose health through drug use, because that
Yes.
is not the answer.
Yes.
Even though we talk about the herbs and the whatever, drug is not the answer, because once we are consuming it, we are taking it in, it is going to impact our organs. And if we want to speak about moderation, so persons, adults really, in terms of their usage, we are going to say they need to take it easy.
Yes.
They need to limit their usage. They need to do sensible usage. So if it's that you're drinking, you can't overdrink. You can't drink off the case of beer or whatever it is.
Yes.
You have to do things in moderation. And that's why we are saying it will be fine.
Yes.
Stay healthy
Good.
and drug free.
Yes. Susan, the mental health part of it. The mental health part of it. Some people quote and say, "We can't manage, so we have to go to this." Can I ask you, what would you say to that youth who is at this stage thinking that, boy, I need to build a spliff, I need to use something to give me a high? What would you say to them?
Alright, what I would say to a young person is that, and this is something that, you know, I've heard my daughter, and, you know, we learn from each other. You know?
Yes.
And she mentioned the fact that, you know, we can have short-term pleasure for long-term pain, or we can have short-term pain for long-term pleasure.
Yes.
And there are times when we may seek to use a substance to cope, but then, you know, you'll find that the problem doesn't leave
The problem doesn't
The
leave.
problem is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we will use more because when the substance wear off, the problem is going to still be there.
Yes.
And then I use more substance and the cycle continues and then I'm deeply addicted.
Yeah.
My thing is that, listen, and there's a prayer that I love, and it says, God grant me the serenity.
Yes.
God grant me the peace of mind to accept the things that I cannot change.
Yes.
And it didn't stop there. It says, God give me the courage, the bravery to change the things that I can. And God give me the knowledge, the wisdom to know the difference between the two.
Yes.
So in life, there are certain things that we don't have no control over.
Mm-hmm.
And I may be going through a situation, and believe me, I may not have any control over that particular thing. Like, for example, right now, COVID, online school, I can't change it. I can't change it. So listen, leave that alone. What is it that I can change? I know that I'm going to have to do online school. I know that this is my reality. How do I work with the reality that I have? You know, and utilize your support system. They're so
wonderful.
The things that a lot of times people do not realize that, if, for example, a parent may be struggling with a child with a substance abuse issue, and I'm saying there is support system free of cost. You don't have to pay a cent. And there are times by just reaching out, you have your church family, you have, you know, you have people who are level-headed that you can sit, you can reason with. And a lot of times these services are not utilized at all. And I'm saying to young people, it doesn't, for a lot of time we bottle things up inside, and a lot of young people, even sometimes our young men, and this is one of the issues we are seeing with them as we interact with them sometimes, is that they may be suffering silently, and they just keep it inside and then use this substance. And I'm saying, no, you don't have to do that. There are people out there, there are resources available. Just reach out, sometimes just talk to somebody, you know, and share, and you'll be surprised to know that in talking to somebody, there are times, sometimes too, you know, you talk to somebody and it's not even what the person said, but the mere fact that all that burden that you were carrying all by yourself, it is lifted and you feel better.
Much better.
So I'm saying to young people, no, you don't need to smoke, you don't need to drink to cope. There are resources available, there are persons out there who are willing and want to help. Reach out, identify, get involved in church, a lot of people do not realize how a church community can be supportive. Just having a person who you can sit down and you can come in and just say hi to. You know, you don't have to be alone and lonely. You can just reach out to other people who are there, and help is available. I will say to persons over and over again, there are lots of services out there. Just tap into it, reach out to the right person. Talk to your pastor, talk to your youth leader, just pull them one away and just talk, and then you'll be surprised to know how relief you feel. Substances is only going to lead you down a negative path.
So I'm going to give you the last word here, Mr. Morrison. Tell us about your organization. What are some of the services that you provide that we can tap into?
Right, so the National Council on Drug Abuse under the Ministry of Health, we stand ready and always be here to support, to give guidance, to give counsel to parents who are struggling with their children with drug issues. So they call us for consultation. We have programs for persons who are using and need the help. We offer that free of cost. And all they need to do is just find us. So we are in the social media space at Drug Free JA. We are on we have a helpline, which is 876-564-4357 or 564-HELP, and that is 564-HELP. Once you call that line, they'll direct you to just about wherever you are in the country.
Yes.
There's an officer there to serve you and to provide the help that you need.
Yes.
So we are here, so we will screen, assess what is happening, carry out the drug screening, provide the counseling service,
Yes.
just about to anybody from the youngster to the oldster.
Yes.
So we are here to serve just about the general population
Yes.
in giving help. So we do public education, we do talks. So if a church needs our service, they will invite us in,
Yes.
and we make those conversations to the congregation, as well as a workplace who needs us. If schools need us, they just reach out to us. So the western region here there are 5 parishes that we are responsible for. Westmoreland, we have Hanover, St. James, Trelawney, and St. Anne. And our numbers at the local office is 940-2240 or 971-0839. As well as we have in the other region, so you can call our head office directly, 926-9002, and it goes up to 4. Any one of those numbers, if you call, even if it is that you're not sure where you want, once you call, there's somebody to be able to direct you to where the service is. So the National Council on Drug Abuse stands right here in your community, in your local space, to give you service that you need.
Where are you located in Montego Bay?
So in Montego Bay, we are at 4 Car Crescent, and this is on the Family Court building in the Clock area. And that's where you will find us at our regional office. And in each of the offices, in each of the parishes, there is a local parish officer that is there to give service to the communities that they serve.
I want to say a big thank you to our friends, our partners, Susan and Clifton, for being part of this conversation today as we help parents, as we help youngsters, as we help community members to recognize that there are indeed resources, there are indeed help for those who are struggling to communicate to their children those values, means by which they are able to resist the temptation of that wider pressure that comes. We're here also to say a big thank you to them for using this week to highlight, the need for our nation going through this anxious moment to take your time.
I know you're closing.
Yes.
As we are taking our time, it will
Yes.
really stop me though.
Yes.
To not mention there's another arm to the National Council on Drug Abuse, is that
Yes.
we have an outreach project arm that seeks to look at our vulnerable population, our homeless drug using population, as well as the other key population, and where they also offer free HIV testing.
Oh, good.
And as the service is branded, Take It to Them,
Yes.
where they take services to
the community.
the communities
Wonderful.
who need the service based under that project lineup. So, and they are also based in Montego Bay here at 10 Car Crescent, just around the corner from the Family Court. So we are wide and varied, and we offer wide services to the general public.
Really want to thank you guys for your service to the community, especially in the context in which we are operating. And I really want to commend you on your theme and to remind each of us, take your time, it will be fine. Stay healthy and drug free. Truly want to thank them for being a part of this conversation today, and I trust that you have found this discussion, this conversation beneficial. And I would like to encourage you, if it is that you have started, you will pause to think that this may just be a temporary fix, and what we want is a permanent fix for the challenge that you're faced with. If you're here and you're contemplating because you want to fit in, be reminded that such behaviors can be addictive, and it can lead you down paths that you really, really don't want to go. On behalf of the church, we are here to provide support and strength. We're here to help the youngsters to develop those values that will allow them the capacity, like the 3 Hebrew boys, like Joseph, to say no to those things that will cause damage to us as human beings, but more importantly, to damage our relationship with our God. I pray this week that you will find God's grace and strength available to you to enable you to resist going down that path, and that you will always be mindful that you are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. May God bless you. Have yourself a blessed week as we continue our conversations. Join us again next week at 6 p.m. when we will have another conversation around the Word of God. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make His face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of His countenance upon you and grant you His peace.